This is the Daggerfall User's Guide by Bethesda Softworks. Credits of all the people who worked in the game, and as you can tell, additional design, Todd Howard, and project leaders Julian Lefay. Here's the introduction. What's the story? One of the pleasures of working on the follow-up to a hugely successful, critically acclaimed role-playing game is having interesting questions to answer. People who play role-playing games need more than some pretty graphics and non-stop action to whet their claymores. They want depth and character and wit and drama. They want the thickest, most involving novel that they've ever read and ever translated to their 15-inch screen, with themselves as the hero. That's why I love people who play role-playing games. They're so reasonable. During the years between the release of Arena and the publication of Daggerfall, we've danced around the answer to the question, what's the story of Daggerfall? We've said we haven't the time to go into it, that we don't want the competition to find out, that we're still ironing out some details, that it might have something to do with this or maybe with that. The truth is simply this: we don't know yet. When players ask what the story to Daggerfall is, I imagine Macbeth asking what the story to Macbeth is before the play begins. You are the protagonist, the hero of the game. The story is what you decide to make it. There are going to be foils to your character, people who try to stop some of your more grandiose goals, and people who are there to help if it serves them. But it is your aims and ambitions that frame the story. After all, role-playing games are plays in which the stars are members of the audience. Given a large, well-appointed stage, a supporting cast of improvisationalists, and an alert backstage crew, they are capable of anything. And the best thing we game designers and programmers can do is give you what you want and get out of your way. You have a challenge ahead of you in Daggerfall, in many ways than one. This is a game designed to encourage exploration and reward curiosity. There are opportunities to do great and heroic deeds, and likewise possibilities of indulging in less virtuous activities. You are not required to follow a path of righteousness or nor a path of depravity, but both roads and everything in between are open to you, just like in real life. Unlike real life, you can switch off potentially offensive scenarios if you wish by using your child guard feature. Who says virtual reality can't be better than reality? In the world of computer role-playing games, it is considerably more difficult to create a book with blank pages than one where the story is complete. Daggerfall is a heartfelt group effort by all of the programmers, writers, artists, and designers who worked on this project. Special thanks are merited by a group of our dearest friends and our harshest critics, who have the official title of beta testers, but who contributed to everything from writing fables for the bookstores to designing shop and castle interiors. And of course, we would not have known what direction the Elder Scrolls needed to take without the letters, posts, and telephone calls from the fans of Arena. And so we turn the question back to you. What's the story? It is not for us to answer. Follow your own spirit and tell your own story in your own way. We hope only you help you make it real. And then this is like the other manual, an Arena, the replay the same game, same strategy. Yeah, it's really neat. And here we are, we have the history. In the Second Era 896, a noble warrior king named Tiber Septim rose from the turmoil of the evil wars of the civil war that consumed the continent Tamriel and proclaimed himself emperor. Many opposed his claim and were crushed beneath his might like sputtering sparks of flame. The year after his conquest, when Septim was crowned first emperor of Tamriel, he declared also the beginning of a new era, the Third Era of Tamriel. But this is all ancient history to you. You were born in Third Era 375, during the reign of the 21st Emperor of Tamriel, Uriel Septim VII. The civilization that Tiber Septim forced onto the subjects of his empire has nearly fallen, as the Elder Scrolls predicted. The bloody wheel has nearly turned all the way back to anarchy. Some call it the whim of Jeffer, the storyteller who crafts fate for his divine amusement. Others say that the unworthy heirs of Tiber allowed their vassal kings too much liberty, or lacked their ancestors' military genius. A few look to the character of the people of the arena of Tamriel and remark that no one could create a lasting empire in such a place. Tiber must have had supernatural aid to accomplish what he did. Such theorizing is best left to the scroll keepers of the imperial city or the Sigics of the Isle of Artinum. Tamriel is what it is. The current emperor is no stranger to you. You have helped him in the past, and know he considers you a loyal subject, perhaps even a friend. Trust is a hard prize to win, Muriel Septim. He trusts his last imperial battle mage, the power-mad Yegar Tharn, and it nearly destroyed him. His current imperial battle mage, Akato of Firsthold, Long of the Elder Council, has alone earned the position of the Emperor's confidante and chief advisor. When the Emperor summoned you to his audience chamber, you were not surprised that he asked you to arrive after midnight. You were accustomed to seeing the Emperor at unusual hours. Sometimes it seemed that, to the Emperor, you were an unusually crafted weapon to be drawn in secrecy away from the inquisitive eyes of the official court. A trusted guard escorted you down the gilded marble halls of the Imperial Palace to the Emperor's audience chamber. Along the way, you passed ancient tapestries and sculpture acquired by Tiber Septim or one of his equally various descendants. Uriel Septim greeted you formally in utter darkness as Akato lit a single candle, emanating the barest illumination. This was to be unusually Septia speeding, even for the cautious Uriel Septim. Please excuse the gloom, he began with a solemnity that you had never heard before from him. But none may know of this meeting. The nature of my trouble is darker still. Its subject is King Lysandus of Daggerfall, a man who died over a year ago, honorably on the field of battle. You started to respond, but were silenced. It was peculiar of the Emperor not to allow you any questions or comments. He almost seemed to be afraid of too much inquiry into this particular affair. Without pause, the Emperor continued. He was as great and as loyal a subject, ally, and friend to me as you are. I did grieve for him, but now I hear his spirit would not rest. It haunts his former kingdom, crying for revenge. I do not know why such a good and loyal man would be cursed, but perhaps you could find the reason. You could close the marble jaws of oblivion and put his soul to peace. I ask this of you as your emperor, and as your friend. I have one other, lesser request. Several years ago, I sent a letter of Lysandus' Queen Mysteria. She now informs me that she never received it. The message was of a sentimental and personal nature. If you would find the letter and destroy it, I would be most relieved. The letter is more important than that. You remember instinctively thinking, but again, you were not given leave to ask any questions. The Emperor's dismissal was friendly, but absolute. Now, my champion, rest well tonight, for tomorrow you will sail for the kingdom of Daggerfall. You packed lightly, for you understood the nature of the voyage ahead. The Emperor meant to send you on a small, anonymous sailing craft down the Eurynthe River, and from there, across the Iliac Bay to Daggerfall. All three bodies of water, the Eurynthe, the Braze, and the Iliac Bay, were notoriously infested with pirates, and any ostensibly decorated craft would need to be conspicuously well defended. Your voyage was uneventful, which made the weeks of travel to the Iliac Bay seem even longer. You still had 1,000 questions about the meaning of your mission. How were you to exercise the spirit of King Lysandus? What was the significance of the Emperor's letter? And where that letter might be? Recognizing the futility of pondering these unanswerable thoughts, you concentrated instead on recalling all you knew of Daggerfall and the Iliac Bay. You knew of the war that had claimed Lysindus, called the War of Bethany. It was an internecine struggle between the Kingdom of Daggerfall and the Kingdom of Sentinel. The battle was over a small but politically significant island at the western edge of the bay near the Abyssian Sea. At the final battle of the war, the bloody Battle of Kringane Field, both kings were killed. And Sentinel, the king's widow, Acranthe, took the throne, regent until her children reached their majority. In Daggerfall, Lysindus was succeeded by his son, Gothred. But Daggerfall won the war in possession of the island of Bethany. Gothred's first act as king was to make official peace with Sentinel, and to marry Princess Abuki a Sentinel as a bond. You do not know whether this union has proved otherwise. The third major power of the Iliac Bay, besides Daggerfall and Sentinel, is the Kingdom of Wayrest, ruled by the elderly King Edward and his wife. She was the legendary former Queen of Mournhold, Baronzaya. Both have children of nearly the same age from previous marriages, and though you do not know the particulars, you recall hearing rumors that there exists a dispute over the succession. It would certainly be worth your while to take a trip to Wayrest. It is said to be a kingdom of great treasures, where the merchant classes have made their land rich by trade. Your ship sailed past the ancient stone walls of Wayrest, and the Boshay widened into the brightened expanse of the Iliac Bay. Your eyes lifted from the water to the sky. To the west, utter darkness, clouds boiling and fierce intensely obliterated the sun. You did not know how soon the storm would arrive, and you considered sailing back to the protected harbor of Wayrest. But Wayrest docks were not cheap, and the merchants could charge whatever they wished to travelers fleeing from pirates or traders. Anticlera was not far up the coast, and there were bound to be other small fishing villages where you could dock. It was hard to measure the distance to the storm. Perhaps it was out in the Abyssian Sea. It would dissipate before it crossed the bay. Unfortunately, the ram began a few miles west to the Isle of Bepharia. Soon it was so dark you couldn't hardly see your boat. But you could feel it, grinding, crackling every time the waves struck its side. The water had darkened to a blackish violet. Your imagination was suddenly filled with fables of the monstrous creatures that lurked beneath the Iliac Bay. Weird tentacle beings, women with bodies of eels, and flesh-eating fish. You pushed such fantasies away and concentrated on the present danger. The rain came out of the darkness like an endless barrage of spears. The sound of it merged with the crashing of the waves, the splintering of your boat, and the high-pitched howl of the wind. You were becoming deaf as well blind. You numbly steered the ship into the direction of that you hoped was north. Your last thoughts were directed on an ink-black shape. Rising ahead of you is a deep gray sky. Was it the side of a cliff or a dark fury of a storm? A blast of water rushed over the side of the ship, carrying you over. As you plunged into the dark and foaming bay, you saw your ship dive beneath the surface as if it was an imitation of something stuck in your head. You came very near to death, but by sheer willpower you won the struggle against the vortex beneath the sea. The storm had intensified to an unnatural tempest, like a living thing at the command of a maleficent master. With desperate, flailing hands, you gripped an outcropping of a rock and slowly, painfully pulled yourself toward the cliff's edge. The waves crashed against a stone wall, cracking the very surface of the precipice. Stones darted loose from the cliff and became deadly projectiles, and the entire cliff face began to slow into the sea. Carrying you with it, you saw a small cavern opening. You fell into the shelter. Your eyes were adjusting to the cave's gloom when you heard the blast behind you. For a second you panicked. You were buried alive. Then you saw the tunnel, your only way out. That's the lineage. You got the House of Daggerfall, the House of Wayrest, and the House of Sentinel. Those symbols. And this is the instructions on how to play the game. And it says the Skyrim, elsewhere the Khajiit. And this is when they are actually cats, or cat-like, the great cats of the desert. The Khajiit are agile, intelligent, and hardy people. Nords are strong, willful, and hardy. We got Hammerfell, High Rock, Black Marsh, Foundwood, Somerset Isle, and Morrowind. These are your classes you could pick. The assassins, rogues, warriors, bards, knights, battle mages, healers, and spell swords, stuff like that. For the rolling, we have the stats like climbing, critical thinking, dodging, languages, pickpocketing, and things like running and photometry. And these are the spells like spell absorption, immunity to a certain thing, and the advantages and disadvantages. The controls and the hotkeys that you'd be using in the game. And it says how the default interface is similar to Arena, but there is a second one. There's the cursor-based interface and the view-based interface where it's full screen, where this game had that implemented. And this is explaining the new experience system that they introduced in the Elder Scrolls games. This is not an Arena, and compared to other role-playing games. Basically, the things you do in the game, like running, climbing, thievery, magic, potion making, the more you do it, the more experience you get, and you level up those, and you get better at it as you do those topics. The more you climb, the better you'll be at climbing over time. The more magic you do, the more efficient you'll be in magic. Things of that nature. Very cool, and every single Elder Scrolls game uses this afterwards. This is the world of Tamriel, buying, selling, repairing, and exploring the Iliac Bay. There's guilds and taverns, palaces, banks, temples. Weapon raiders, claymores, warhammers. All the magic since like the first game. There's reputation in the game now, where you can actually ruin a certain faction, judging off your choices and the actions that you take. Here's the bestiary. Yeah, we have the rats, imps, the spriggans, which are like the tree-like, and each of these there's a good explanation of what they are. Orcs, lycanthropes. There's the slaughterfish, the centaurs, harpies, druids, daedra. There's vampires, dragons. And this is the glossary. This is like the explanation of what each item and each person and each location is. Like for example, it says Akatosh, the god of time. Arcade, the god of the cycle of birth and death. Baron Zaya, queen of Wayrest, former queen of Mournhold. The Blades are a legendary group of swordsmen with unknown allegiance and power. It's alphabeticalized too. The Dark Brotherhood, an assassinations guild prohibited by law. I didn't join them in my playthrough, but officially sanctioned by many powers that unofficially use their services. The leader of the Dark Brotherhood is supposedly called the Night Mother. Dibella, the goddess of beauty. Very cool. It's Stendar, the god of mercy and compassion. And Uriel Septim VII, the Emperor of Tamriel and the liege lord of all kings and queens of the land. His forebear, Tiber Septim, conquered the continent more than 400 years ago, ushering the third era of history.